Welcome to N9TAX Labs. This is Radio Joe. Okay, so here we are at the N9TAX Labs website. Pretty simple, really. If you want to, you scroll down, there's some information. The contact us is at the bottom of the first page. Obviously, if you want to send us a message about something. But Shop Now is the important button that you want to click. It's going to take you to all the products. There are a number of products and a number of different configurations. It's going to be a little daunting to understand, and we're working on getting a better site here. But this one's a little confusingly laid out. But if you look under all products over here, you'll see you have antenna adapter cable. If you click antenna, you're only going to see the antennas that we sell. So the antennas are sold a couple of different ways. We sell them with an integrated cable. Basically, if you're wanting an antenna for, setting up in a motel or in your home, putting in a window or something like that, or even out in field use or whatever, you're probably going to want one with the included cable. We'll go ahead and click on that product there. So you're going to get a choice of two different cable lengths, right? You can either do a 16-foot cable or a 10-foot cable. And you'll get to choose the connector that's on the end. Now, there's a number of different connectors available. Obviously, this is going to be, tied to what kind of radio you have. So we have the SMA males. Most of the Japanese radios, Yaesu, Kenwood, and the like, will take the SMA male. And that's the actual connector that's pictured here. So it has a female thread and a male pin. Very important to understand the gendering of the cables, because that's something that is a little bit confusing to new hams. There are pictures here so that help you understand what's on your radio there. But yeah, you're always worried about the pin, never the thread for your connector gender there. So yeah, an SMA female, that's a connector that you're going to use on most of the Chinese radios, the Baofangs, the I was trying to think of the different manufacturers, but most of the Chinese radios are using these. There are a couple outliers there, like the TYTs that actually take the males, like the Japanese radios, but a vast majority of them and all of your Baofangs are using the SMA female. So that's an important one there. UHF male. This is going to be the connector that's going to go on most mobile amateur rigs. It's the same connector that was historically used on like CB radios and all of your HF radios and things like that. So that's a UHF male. Let's see, N male is less used in the ham community. Mostly used on like repeaters and things like that. There were a few commercial radios that used N connectors. It is a better connector from an RF standpoint than a UHF, but it is more rarely used. Let's see, a BNC. Older portable radios use the BNCs. So that was, ICOMs and Yaesus. They all used to use the BNCs. Frankly, I miss them because they were a lot easier to take on and off, which I think was better for a ham because they didn't use screws. It was just a quarter turn on the little bayonets there. And then there's the mini UHF. Now, please don't mistake the mini UHF for the UHF, because this is a totally different connector. It's about somewhere in between the size of the SMA and the UHF. And the only radios that really ever used these were commercial radios. But we do include them in the stock here because Motorola used these on a lot of their radios. And a lot of people who are doing DMR are using Motorola radios. And that would be the connector that you're gonna get for any of the Motorola mobile radios. So that basically takes care of the connectors. Now we'll go back to the products here, and let's look at the antennas again alone. So there's that antenna we looked at. Now let's look at the standard. The standard antenna is basically just going to be an antenna with a female connector, right? So this is going to be the kind of antenna you want to buy if you're going to add a length of cable. Like if you want to hang this up in a tree or out on a pole or something like that, and you need to run a greater than 10 or 16 foot length of cable back into your shack to wherever your radio operating position is. These are available with SO239 or N female, which are the two connectors that are mostly used, for longer runs of low loss cable. You don't typically see SMAs, BNCs, things like that used on a base antenna. Mainly because if you're running a greater length of cable, you're going to be using like, cable probably the size of your finger, which is, like an RG8 or an LMR 400 or something like that. And it's a pretty thick cable. It's harder to put those small connectors on it. So that's why these are available with these larger, more base station type connectors here. And there's pictures obviously, so you can match up if you're not sure what your radio has or what your cable has. I got some pretty high quality pictures here, so you can take a look. And don't for a minute be afraid to drop me a line. I try to answer questions as quickly as I can, usually on the same day. But if you're not sure what kind of connector your radio has, or if you have any questions at all, really, I'd like to work that out before you make a purchase, and that way we don't have to deal with returns and stuff like that. So it just makes it better for everybody. So, all right, back to the antennas. So there's a number of different antennas that cover different bands. So the dual band 2 meter 70 centimeter antenna is going to cover the amateur radio bands, and that's going to be 2 meters 144 to 148 megahertz, and they do cover a little bit outside of that. These antennas have about a 10 megahertz good usable bandwidth on each band, so you could still use it on the Mars and cap frequencies that are just outside of the 2 meter band on either side. That won't be a problem. And 70 centimeters, it will cover from 440 to 450, which is basically the repeater and FM section of the 70 centimeter band. So it does not cover from 430 to 440. Because 440 to 450, that's our 10 megahertz there. We've used up all of our usable bandwidth. So we also sell the MURS GMRS. Now, MURS is the multi-user radio service, and those are frequencies in 150 megahertz band. So this covers roughly 150 to 160. There's some 151, 152, and then some 156, I believe, frequencies in MURS. I don't remember right off the top of my head, but the antenna does cover close to 150 all the way to 160. So maybe shifted a little bit down under 150 and just below 160. So it kind of centers exactly on those MURS frequencies. The GMRS side easily covers 462 to 467. Which are your GMRS frequencies, and it a little bit past that in either direction. So please don't mistake this for needing an amateur radio antenna, because this will not work on the amateur bands very well, and in turn the amateur antennas won't work very well on the MURS and GMRS frequencies. But yeah, these are good. Pretty much any of your commercial frequencies that sit in the 150 to 160 and almost 460 to 470 kind of range, these antennas will work just fine. And that takes us to the single band Slim Jims. Now, every antenna that we have is available in both the standard and the cable included version. So we have the dual 2 meter 70 centimeters with the 10-16 foot cable and the standard, and then we also have the MURS and GMRS, and then there's the MURS and GMRS standard antenna. And same with our single band antennas. Now the single band antennas, and they're marketed as a single band antenna, not a 2 meter antenna. If you just order it straight up, with no extra requests, you're going to get a 2 meter amateur antenna that's set up for 144 to 148 megahertz. Obviously, it's going to go a little bit on either side of that. We'll definitely cover the Mars and cap frequencies just like the dual band antenna does. Connector selections are the same. So and also in turn for the standard antenna, it is also offering the N and the UHF female. Cable length same. You can order the 10 or 16 foot, and that's just the amount of cable that's on the antenna itself. Now, what sets the single band antennas apart from the other one is this custom tuning option. You can click this custom tuning option, and it gives you a box here, and you can pretty much type whatever you want in there. Yeah, but there is a limit to where I will tune these to. So you could say like the 220 band, right? And that would at that point I would give you an antenna that's centered perfectly at 223.5, which is the center of 222 to 225. You could also put 1.25 meter band, and I would know what that meant. And basically, remember the antennas are, they have a 10 megahertz bandwidth, right? So you can, whatever center frequency you put here, and I really prefer you don't give me a range, but understand that the antenna has a 10 megahertz bandwidth. Give me the exact center where you want this antenna centered at, because that's going to allow me to know exactly what to tune it to. And then obviously the antenna is going to work, 5 megahertz up or down from that. So that'll work out for most of what you need. So this is very important here. Please restrain your custom work to 136 to 999 megahertz range. The reason for these limits, below 136, the antennas do get a little long, so we're using a lot more material to build these antennas. There is a custom tuning, 88 to 136 option. So don't take the first custom tuning. So if you need one for an FM radio band or something like that, please pick the 88 to 136 range. I will charge you a little bit more money because it is more difficult to build these antennas and they take more material. So that's how that happens. But the standard custom tuning, the additional $1, which is a good deal really, because it takes me quite a while to take aside and cut a exact antenna. We can tune between 136 and 999. So why did I stop at 999? Well, the antenna is getting so ridiculously short at that point that it's almost hard to build them. And really, and I've used these antennas at 900 megahertz, and they work all right. But as you get into the gigahertz, there are a lot better antennas gain-wise than a J-match antenna. So you really don't, even though it might be possible to build an antenna that goes higher than that, and it's just not really a good idea. So that's kind of why we stopped there. But yeah, and again, it's it does approximately 5 megahertz in either direction of the center frequency. So that's very. We do not accept returns on custom products. So make sure you're ordering what you need. Because it's not really fair to me that we built some custom antenna and you sent it back. There's really nothing I could do with it at that point. So we're not going to accept returns on that. I don't think that's unfair, but that is the policy. So if there is the exception, the antenna is defective. If there's a problem with the antenna, it doesn't work, we will certainly return your money or repair it or whatever we have to do to make it right. So there's no problem there. Antennas above 300 megahertz. We are building with a narrow ladder wire. We're not using the 450 ohm ladder wire like we do with the dual band antennas, the VHF antennas. And most of that reason behind that is just scale. That antenna scales a lot better to the narrower 300 ohm ladder wire. Now, it's not cheap TV ribbon cable. It's built as well as the 450 ohm wire that we use. And it's good wire, so there's no problem with that. And it does make for a nice compact antenna that's easy to deploy and use. So that's about it for here. Everything else is pretty much the same. So that's the antennas, right? And if anybody has any questions, there's a contact us page on that first page there. There's a contact us link up here. Please, if there's something you don't understand, please ask us before you order, because it just makes it easier for everybody, because we understand, what's going on there, and get the order right that first time. So then we'll look at these patch cables. Now we do sell some patch cables. All the cable that we sell currently is all RG58. So we do limit the lengths. And that's because of the loss at RG58, right? RG58 is a very appropriate cable for short distances at these frequencies. It's not an appropriate cable for long distances at these frequencies, but we do sell some patch cables. So if you wanted to get a standard antenna that was, you wanted to have the option of having a cable also, that's what you would want to order one of these. And if you were to order the cable, so these cables start at 3 feet. That's the minimum length, and then you're adding length with this selector here. So if you added 12 feet, right, you're going to get 15-foot cable. Add that to the approximate foot of cable that's on a standard antenna, and you'll end up with our 16-foot offering, but with a detachable cable. And, obviously we would select the mate to the antenna over here. So if you were getting a connector to put on your antenna, maybe you'd get a UHF male because the antenna had a UHF female on it, and then you would get whatever fit on your radio. So you had a Baofeng, maybe you got an SMA female. So that's pretty much the patch cables. And like I said, we limit the length of these for loss reasons. I don't, it's, if you're putting an external antenna on your radio and you're going through all this trouble to get a little bit of gain, and you put a ton of lossy cable on there, really you're going to lose all of the gains that you got out of your antenna. So that's the reason for the constraints that I have here on the site. And maybe sometime in the future, and we've done it in the past, but it's really difficult. It's hard for me to get good pricing, on low loss cable and things like that. So it's possible in the future, again, I might start selling low loss cable, but right now we don't offer it. There's so many places on the web that you can buy decent low loss cabling that really, I'm in the antenna business. I'm not really in the cable business, so it's hard for me to give you as good of a deal as other people can. So that's why we only offer the RG58 patch cables. Outside of that are the adapters. The adapters are pretty self-explanatory. If I click on adapter up here, I'm going to filter out and only see the adapters. Now, there are a few that you might want to pay attention to. A lot of people ask me when they're ordering antennas, what kind of configuration should I get if I want an antenna that can hook to my mobile and also hook to my portable radio. And they often ask me why I don't sell a UHF female, to an SMA, so that they can get a UHF male connector on their antenna and then, put it onto their portable. Well, I made a decision a long time ago that I thought that was a bad idea. And I'll tell you why. I had a Kenwood THG 71A, I believe it was, portable radio years ago. And this had to be more than a decade ago. And I had this radio, and I was using it with an external antenna, and I had a big connector onto an adapter that's sitting on top of the radio, and I turned the wrong way and I pulled, and it snapped the SMA connector off clean flush with the top of the radio. And I will tell you what, I could not find a replacement part to put into that radio to replace that connector. I ended up having to buy one that was close, and then grinding it down and drilling some holes in its flange and getting it was very difficult to replace that connector, and that radio was never quite right again. So I made a decision that, there's adapters all over the internet. If you want to buy whatever you want to buy, but I'm not going to sell them because I don't think it's a good idea. If you want to buy an antenna to use on your portables and your mobiles, buy it with the SMA connectors, male or female, whichever one matches your portable, and then get the adapter to adapt to UHF to get to your mobile. You're going from then you have a small connector on your portable radio that doesn't have a lot of leverage to break that connector off of the radio. The larger connector will go onto your mobile radio. That's, to me, a smart way to do it. And it's really just to protect you and your radio. So and I've been there. Like I said, I've done it myself. I know how putting a big adapter on top of a portable can be. So for those of you that are using any of the Chinese portables or anything like that, and you might want to look at these SMA females, these black ones that are knurled. They were specifically designed to go onto the Chinese radios and match really nice. They're black anodized to put a BNC on there. That makes a nice quick connect type connector. And you can still find handy talkie radios that are BNC and allow you to quickly take your antenna off and put the put an external antenna on it. So those are kind of nice for that. But that's about it. I mean, it's really there's not a ton of products on here. I know it can be a little daunting when you look at the antennas to try and understand exactly what it is you need. We do also have the technical info page. I don't know if many people notice that that's up there. It does talk about how the Slim Jim design works, the trapping of the dual band, and also how to mount rigidly on like a pole. I get that question a lot. People want to put the antenna up inside of PVC or things like that. We have noticed that a lot of effect in the tuning of the antenna by putting it inside of PVC, and that's due to the fact that you're adding a lot of material around the antenna, which is changing the velocity factor of this wire, right? So it's making the wire seem longer. It will really detune the antennas, tune them down lower than they are. I've seen 146 megahertz antenna go down to like 142 or 141, and people, they stick it inside a PVC because they're like, oh, why is my antenna not working? So one thing that we did notice that that does work, and it doesn't affect the antennas nearly as badly as these little fiberglass rods that you can buy at your ATV store for putting a flag mast on the back of your ATV. It's about a 1/4 inch fiberglass. You can take a paper punch and punch a couple holes like we do in the bottom of the antenna, and use a zip tie to put that thing right in the center of that ribbon. And in doing that, then it's not as close to the wires, and it's fiberglass, and it's small, so it doesn't really affect the tuning of the antenna a whole lot. So that's something to look at there if you want to put this up on your roof or up on a tower or something like that. There's also the bow mount. We're kind of getting away from suggesting the bow mount. It's difficult. You can take a piece of PVC and bow it and like suspend the antenna in between there like you're making a bow and arrow set. And you can see that up on my tower. And you have to be careful with that, and you have to use the thinner, lighter PVC, and so that you don't end up breaking the antenna, because it does put quite a bit of stress on it. So really, this fiberglass rod mount's the way to go. It's cleaner looking, it's easier to do. Those rods, well, the last time I bought one was probably a decade ago, but they were only about $10, and I bet they're not much more nowadays. So yeah. That's it. That's my video today about the website, and hopefully I have given you some insight into what our different products are and how to find them on our website. And you have a wonderful day. Well, we're glad you could join us for another exciting episode of Radio Joe. Remember, if you liked our videos, hit that subscribe button. We certainly appreciate your support. Have a wonderful day.